going on, everybody? It's Richard Coburn here, the Blue Collar Nerd. It is summertime, and it is release notes time. Let's jump into it.
Everybody hop on the release notes boat. We got some new features, we got flamingo floats. We got new y'all items that came from you, surf boats. They're gonna make us cheer until we got sore throats. Everybody hop on the release notes boat. We got some new features, we got flamingo floats. We're having a party on the release notes boat.
So first, under the highlight section of these release notes, we have a bunch of accounting features. And we talked about most of these in the previous release notes. These are all, in fact, let me get the giant y'all hat. Ooh, why is there so much cat hair on it? Why is there so much cat hair on it? These accounting features are all one giant y'all item. But I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time talking about them in this video because I gave you a high-level overview in the previous release notes video, and I've made a deep dive video already. And in that video, I really dive in and show you step-by-step what all this stuff does and how to set it up. I'm not exactly sure yet on exactly when that video is going to drop, but keep an eye out for it. It might be out by the time you're watching this video. But overall, we have the touchless journal entry integration for Intacct and QuickBooks Online, which eliminates the need for any manual batching, posting, and exporting. We have journal entries just in general, which allows you to use ServiceTitan with any accounting software you want. We have accounting periods, which relates back to journal entries and the touchless integration, because this is the new way in which you control when things like invoices and payments can and can't be edited anymore. And there have been some enhancements to the accounting audit trail. And again, I've got a separate video where we take a deep dive into those features. Now, I mentioned this in the previous release notes video. Keep in mind that these accounting features, they're not truly tied to any particular release. They're being rolled out slowly and they're being rolled out independently from the regular release cycle. So if you get this ST70 release in your account, but you still don't see some of those accounting features, nothing's wrong, that's normal. Okay, next, under customer and location records, the ability to sync contact methods is now available by default. So now whenever you go to edit a contact method, like a phone number or an email, and that contact method exists in multiple records, be it multiple location records or multiple customer records, you'll now get this prompt where you can select the other records where you'd also like to update that contact method. That way, if a contact method, a phone number, or an email exists in multiple places, you don't need to manually remember exactly everywhere that it exists and manually go in and update it. If this feature sounds a little bit familiar to you, you're not going crazy. It was actually initially released back in the winter release. But we ended up rolling it back and making some minor tweaks to it. Not because there was really anything wrong with it. It worked fine, but there was some confusion caused because, a lot of people, a lot of ServiceTitan users will use placeholder information or fake information. Like if somebody doesn't have an email or they don't want to give you their email, you'll just put in like noemail@gmail.com, right? So the problem was if you were doing that and you had noemail@gmail.com across like 100 different customers and 100 different locations, if you changed noemail@gmail.com on one location to a different email, a real email, you would get this pop-up coming up asking you where else you would like to update that. But by default, everything was checked off. And then some people would just kind of like blindly hit the blue button to make the prompt go away without truly reading what the prompt was saying. And the prompt was saying, hey, that email address that you just put in, I'm about to put it across 100 different customers. Are you sure you want that? Which caused some users to be confused as to why one random email for one particular customer suddenly propagated across 100 different locations on 100 different customers. So a couple of things have been done to mitigate that issue. First is now when that modal pop-up shows up asking you where else you'd like to update the record, everything is unchecked by default instead of checked. So if somebody blindly hits the button to make the prompt go away, nothing will happen. It will just update the one thing that they updated. The other thing that's been done is contact information is now allowed in the software to be left blank to not force users to put in fake information. So if you are using placeholders, that's probably not the best idea. I would advise going in just using the search to find those placeholders and just take them out because you can replace them now with blanks. Next, under dispatching, we've got a y'all item. We have a new Teams management feature for the dispatch board. So in ServiceTitan, you can separate your dispatch board into teams. That part's not new. So you can have like an install team, a service team, whatever you want. And that was managed from the technician's profile. So if you wanted a particular technician to be under the service team, you would fill in that field under their tech profile. This was kind of hard to manage. You had to make sure that team names exactly matched, or else you'd get a duplicate team instead of adding the technician to the pre-existing team. Plus, the teams were just sorted on the dispatch board alphabetically. There was no way to manually control what order they were in, resulting in the unsightly workaround of just adding various numbers of symbols like an asterisk before the team name, because it was sorted alphabetically, and the more symbols that were in front of the letters, the higher up on the dispatch board it would show up. So it would be like asterisk, asterisk install would show up before asterisk service. And you know, that worked, but it was kind of janky. So we don't have to do that anymore. We have Teams Management. So let me show you how this works. Now, to get to Teams Management, you're gonna go to the main settings here and go to Dispatch Board and Teams Management. And here we'll see a list of all of our teams. You see you've got the team name here, the number of technicians currently on that team, and the status, whether it's active or deactivated. And if it does get deactivated, it'll move over into this other tab for deactivated teams. Now here in the upper right-hand corner, we've got a button where we would go to create a new team. Any of our pre-existing teams here, we can hit this little arrow to expand and see exactly which technicians are on that team. We'll collapse that back down. We've also got an edit pencil here where we can click to edit the name of any pre-existing team names. We've got this little plus button here if we wanted to add a new technician to this team. Down here at the bottom, we've got a row for all of the technicians with no team assigned, so we can expand that. And then these are all of the technicians that are not currently assigned to a team. And we could just assign them from here. So we'd click this little arrow here and then choose the team where we want to assign them, and then they get assigned to that team. And my favorite feature, we can move teams around, and that will affect the order in which they show up on the dispatch board. I could do that either with these little arrows over here. I could just click that and say move up or move down, move to top of list, move to bottom of list. Or I could also check off a team and then say move up or move down from up here. And this is more useful if I needed to move multiple things at once, so I can check off all three of these and move all three of those up. So let's say this team, HVAC install lead, let's say I want that to be at the very top. I want that to show up first on my dispatch board. I'll go ahead and hit save in the bottom right-hand corner here. And then let's check out our dispatch board. And we see that now HVAC install lead is at the top. Also down here at the bottom left-hand corner, we have an audit trail where we can see who did what and when as far as this Teams Management stuff. Really cool. I like this feature a lot. RIP to all of those unsightly asterisks. Now, one thing to note here is that this Teams Management, this is now where teams are assigned. You can no longer assign a team from the tech profile. So if we check out our technicians here, hit edit on any random technician, you'll see that the team field is still here, but it's grayed out. And if I hover over the word team, it says to edit, use Teams Management under dispatch board settings. Howdy, y'all. All right, next under Dispatch Pro. So first of all, we've got a couple of quick enhancements here. First of all, we've added a date to the troubleshooter. That way you can troubleshoot jobs that were in the past. And there is also now an option to not lock jobs until a technician has been dispatched. And that would really only be useful to you if you're somebody who uses all-day windows, like you don't provide your customer a specific, okay, we'll be there between 2 and 4. It's an all-day window. In that situation, it would be helpful to not lock jobs until the moment that a technician actually dispatches. Also, the setup checklist for Dispatch Pro has been redesigned. In the past, checklist recommendations could look a little bit too dire and make people think that something was set up incorrectly or broken. So now all recommendations are combined in a simple side-by-side panel with settings, making it easier to read and understand. Next, you can now choose whether to assign technicians to jobs by zones or by business units or both. This isn't exactly a new feature. Dispatch Pro always had some setting there. It's just that the setting was not visible to you. It was a back-end feature. So now this setting is just exposed in your Dispatch Pro setup and you can manipulate it yourself. So basically this setting is saying, okay, when Dispatch Pro is deciding on a pool of technicians to look at to consider for assigning to a particular job, should Dispatch Pro remove technicians from consideration if they are not assigned to the same business unit as the job, or if they're not assigned to the same zone as the job, or either one? My advice here, at first glance, it kind of sounds like it should be both. It should be business units and zones, because we want to make sure that we're getting the technician on the job that's going to be able to do the work and works in that zone, right? But actually, for most people, I would recommend just doing the assignment by zone, because doing it that way is more flexible. Remember, we can assign technicians to multiple zones, but a technician can only be assigned to one business unit. So if you ever have technicians that work in more than just one business unit, then assigning by business unit could be problematic. Instead, if you assign by zone, then you can use skills to really hone in and make sure that the right technicians get assigned to the right jobs that they're actually going to be able to perform. So since we do have skills at our disposal to get really specific as to which technicians can do which types of jobs, I recommend just assigning by zone for most people. And that's the default setting, by the way. Next, you can now choose specific technician start and end locations. So previously, technicians could only start and end their day at their home address. So if your technicians didn't dispatch from home, if they dispatched from the office and then came back to the office at the end of the day, you had to do some complicated workarounds to make that work. But now you can set custom locations for technicians, so they can start and end their day wherever. Any old address will work. Next, under estimates, another y'all item. So when building an estimate out from the office, you can now see the sold hours as well as estimated labor cost. Now I'm busting out the hat for this mainly because of the sold hours part. I've seen people ask over and over to be able to see sold hours easily when building out estimates. Although the estimated labor part is also a direct result of customer requests, but I want to spend some time talking about that. So when you go to build out an estimate from the office side now, you'll have this column for estimated cost, and those fields are inline editable. Also, for any particular Pricebook service, you can input a particular estimated labor cost there, and then that will pre-populate when you're building out an estimate. And then, of course, when you're building an estimate, you'll also see a total for all of the estimated labor on this particular estimate. But what I want to be clear about is, okay, this feature was initially built out for commercial use cases. It was tied to another feature called budget versus actuals. And this feature was only built to affect budget versus actuals. But I guess some residential people saw that and they said, I want that. So, okay, you can have that, but here's the thing. It was built for budget versus actuals, right? So this does not affect your job costing at all. This is not pulling from payroll in any way. This is basically a manual calculation that you're doing in order to estimate the total labor cost. That's all. If you're residential, it doesn't really go anywhere because the only place it goes is budget versus actuals, but you don't have budget versus actuals. Now, since residential people did seem so interested in this feature, it is certainly within the realm of possibility that this feature will get some added functionality down the road to make it a little bit more functional for residential people. But right now, it's just kind of a manual, like back of the napkin calculation that you're doing, and that's it. Okay? Okay. Howdy, y'all. Okay, next under FinTech, we have some enhancements to our Goodleap financing integration. So previously, the Goodleap financing integration, it wasn't quite as integrated as some of the other integrations because the entire experience wasn't fully embedded in the ServiceTitan app itself. But now it is, so now when going through the process in the mobile app, the whole experience is embedded right there within the mobile app, and all of the ServiceTitan information, like the customer name and address, all of that gets pre-populated into the application form. Next, under integrations, we have some enhancements to our ServiceChannel integration. This, by the way, is going to be more relevant to commercial companies. So with these enhancements, now all ServiceChannel related actions are managed directly within ServiceTitan. Next, under the improvement section, another y'all item, we now have rich text formatting in job summaries. So now when a CSR is filling out a job summary, they'll have useful text formatting features like bold, italic, underline, making a bolded list or a numbered list. All super useful things to help make the job summary look a little cleaner and help make important information stand out. So now, instead of just writing, "Don't ring the doorbell, sleeping baby," instead you can say, "Don't ring the doorbell, sleeping baby." Now, technically, text formatting like this in job summaries was possible before, but it required using HTML, which was impractical for a lot of reasons. So now that's no longer necessary. Howdy, y'all. All right, next under Marketing Pro, we have a big one that a lot of people have been waiting for a long time. It would be a y'all item, but I really tried to not make pro product stuff y'all items. But we now have SMS marketing within Marketing Pro. So now within Marketing Pro, you can make campaigns to send text messages out to customers for not just appointment reminders anymore, but also for promotions as well. And of course, you have all the same powerful audience building features at your fingertips. Every month, you get 5,000 messages for free, and then there's a small fraction of a penny charge per message after that. And of course, if you are going to be going over that 5,000 messages, you'll be shown the cost for your campaign before you launch it. All right, next under memberships. You'll now see an alert whenever you try to book a recurring service event that is tied to a suspended membership. So it's possible to suspend memberships. That part's not new. That essentially pauses the membership from any billing. It's not a status everybody uses, but for those who did, it could be a little difficult because there was really nothing stopping a CSR from unknowingly booking a recurring service event for that suspended membership anyways. So now if anybody tries to book a recurring service event that's tied to a suspended membership, they will get this pop-up letting them know. All right, next under Pricebook, another y'all item. So in a previous release notes video, I talked about configurable services for Pricebook Pro, and now configurable services are available for everybody with or without Pricebook Pro. This feature does work a little bit differently though if you don't have Pricebook Pro, plus there's been some changes to configurable services in general, whether or not you do have Pricebook Pro. So let me walk you through how this works. So here I am in a just sample Pricebook, ignore the red alert, we're just in a sample account here. We're under my materials tab and you see we have a few materials here. We have one material that's just called capacitor. This is just a generic capacitor material. And then we have some more specific materials. These are like the actual SKUs that we order from our vendor. So basically what configurable services allows us to do is just have one service in our Pricebook that encompasses all of these potential materials that we could use. So with configurable services, we don't need to have separate services in our Pricebook for capacitor 35 at 5, capacitor 45 at 5. We don't need to do all of that. We can just have one capacitor task, and then the technician or the person building the estimate in the office chooses which material is going to be used. And then if you're also using dynamic pricing, that will affect the price of the service. So to set that up, again, we have our real SKUs here and our generic material. Now it's kind of up to you whether you want to have a generic material that you make the configurable material, or if you just want to make the most commonly used material the configurable material. Either way works, but for this demonstration, I've made a generic material that's going to be the configurable one. And then on the generic material, if we click into this, into the main page there, you'll notice we have a tab for configurable material. So we'll click into that. We will enable configurable material on this generic material, and then we will add down here all of the variations. So for example, I've got one missing here, so I'll hit add material, and I will choose my 50 at 5 capacitor there. Great, so now these are all the variations of this capacitor material. We also have this checkbox here to enable Titan Intelligence continuous learning. If you're on core Pricebook, meaning you don't have Pricebook Pro, then this will be grayed out for you. This is the Pro exclusive feature that essentially makes it so that you don't have to do this part. You don't have to manually map things, that the AI will map it for you. Cool, so that part's done. We're gonna hit save. And now we've got one generic capacitor material with all of the variations tied to it. By the way, you can edit the variations right here in the inline editor. So you don't need to click all the way into that page every time if you need to make some adjustments. Okay, now we need a service that this generic capacitor material is tied to. So we'll go into our services here, and then I've got this service here for remove and replace capacitor, and under linked materials, I have that generic capacitor tied to it. So we're building an estimate out here. I'm on the office side, but this will also work on the technician side. We're going to add that remove and replace capacitor service that has our generic material tied to it. And then I get this flyout that asks me which specific material I am planning to use. And everything that I've linked to the generic material is right here, so I would just select whichever one it is. If for some reason though, the material that I need isn't mapped here, I can come over here to find more items and I can search the entire Pricebook. But if you do not want people to have that ability to just add whatever, you can turn that off. I'll show you how in just a minute. But for now, let's say that I'm going to use this 35 at 5 capacitor. Now notice I've got a dynamic pricing rule tied to this. So right now the total price is $199.81, but as soon as I choose that specific material and hit save, the price gets updated. Now it's $211.40. Because it's following my dynamic pricing rule, taking into account the exact cost of the material that I'm planning to use. If for some reason you didn't want that to happen though, and you wanted to always use the cost of the default material, then you can do that. It's a rule you can set up in your dynamic pricing settings. All right, then I'll just hit add here. And also notice automatically appended to the end of the description for my service here, it specifies which one I'm using. It says dual run capacitor 35 at 5. That way the customer has that detail of exactly what they got. However, again, if you don't want that to happen, you can turn that off as well. So let me show you where to control those settings. So back in our Pricebook, we're gonna go back to our materials tab. And notice now we have the settings cog up here, so we're gonna click on that. And then we get this flyout that has those two settings. Do we want to allow find more, meaning do we want to allow that search box that allows people to tie other materials other than the ones that we've hard tied here in our settings? And do we want to display the variation name appended to the end of the service and item group descriptions? Overall though, this is a great feature that allows you to have a much cleaner and easier to use Pricebook while still maintaining that granular control. Howdy, y'all. All right, next under service agreements. And remember, residential people, memberships and service agreements are different things within ServiceTitan. Memberships are the residential version, while service agreements are the commercial version. So we can now estimate service agreements more accurately and precisely. So before, when you were building out a visit on the scope of work step, you had to manually estimate the labor hours and the material costs. But now you can add specific materials and services from your Pricebook to the visit and then use those to calculate the labor hours and material costs. And those services and materials can be shown on the customer-facing agreement documentation, and they will also pre-populate the eventual invoice when you go to do the work. Next, there's a new adjustment invoices feature. So basically, there's now an easy user interface to make changes to deferred revenue on service agreements. You just fill out the form and then that will automatically generate adjustment invoices for you. That way you don't have to manually create adjustment invoices, which is kind of annoying, complicated, and easy to mess up. Next, we have some service agreement billing improvements. So you can now add customer PO numbers to agreements, and all invoices that are generated from that agreement will include that customer PO number. Also, there is a new annual billing cadence for multi-year agreements. Okay, next under supply chain, we have a new Assemblies feature. So if you have certain types of jobs where you commonly use the same sets of materials, well then you can group those materials together in an assembly, and then when you're building out a purchase order, you can just add that assembly instead of having to add things line by line. To do that, in your settings under inventory and templates, you'll see a new tab next to stock list for assemblies. And you could build out your assemblies from there. And then when building out a PO, you'll see assemblies as a thing that you can add. Man, I'm wearing the y'all hat. How long have I been wearing the y'all hat? I always forget to take it off. I do this like every video. All right, the configurable services was the last y'all item. After that, this was purely a fashion choice. I just want a hat. Get off my back. Get off my back. Can the guy wear a hat? But anyways, that's all I got for today. Be sure to hit like if you liked this video and found it valuable. Be sure to subscribe to ServiceTitan's YouTube channel if you haven't done that already. Hit that bell icon so that YouTube notifies you anytime we upload a new video. And leave me a comment down below and let me know what you think. Please remember that your engagement through likes, comments, and subscriber numbers are the ways in which my success is measured. Appreciate it. Peace.